Good afternoon and welcome back. Hello again, Heini. Hope you are doing fine this afternoon.
Hello, good to be
Hello.
back.
So for the ones that missed the first part, we started today an online discussion on news media literacy for adults. Why is it important right now? And we had a very interesting discussion in the morning to kick off this topic. And then we continued in the EPALE website, the discussion. And we had during the day very interesting insights and practices, sharing, and also some experiences, also some questions as well. And to start this wrap up, I would like to ask you, Heini. Heini was our expert in the morning, and she also commented everything on the discussion page. And I would like to ask you, Heini, to give us some thoughts on the comments that were shared during the day in this discussion. Would you do
Sure.
that? Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. Well, first of all, thank you for everyone taking part in the conversation and sharing really, interesting examples of projects and case studies that you have been doing or that you have been using. I've been going through them and I want to go through them even in more detail. So I don't think I'm able to comment on the specific projects in very much detail, but I think some things that just very much I guess stayed in my mind or were sort of the ones that I would like to highlight from the discussion. I think I feel like people in their feedback and comments and questions sort of shared this idea that adults as a target group for media literacy education are quite challenging because like who do we talk about when we talk about adults? We talk about such different groups, people with very different life situations and skill levels and needs. So this idea that how do we identify the people that really need the education and who should we include? How should we include everyone? I think that's really interesting. At least in Finland, there was a study that recently came out that was, I think, the first study specifically about the media literacy education for adults, and it kind of reinforced my idea that the results that compared to young people and children, media literacy education for adults is very fragmented and not very organized. And I sort of, maybe I also like interpret people's comments with these classes, but I feel like I got the feeling that must be the case in many other countries as well. Another thing I thought was really interesting, I feel like critical skills and critical reading skills were highlighted in many comments, and I think that's great. I think when we talk about media literacy skills and digitalization, I think it's obviously easy to sort of just talk about the technological changes and the digitalization changes, but we should not forget the core, in my mind, which is, how do we critically evaluate information and sources and things like that? I think, again, in my mind, the key question is like, how do we incorporate this critical skills into the digital environments where we navigate daily? I think it's very easy to forget being critical there. And also maybe, I guess, the question of sort of whose responsibility is this? Someone was asking, like, whose responsibility is media literacy education? Someone was raising a really interesting question about the role of libraries, for example. I would guess that again is a sort of can vary very much in different countries. But yeah, whose job is it to train adults in media literacy?
And do you have an opinion on that?
I do very much think that the responsibility belongs to many different organizations. But I do think adult education and liberal adult education plays a really important role in that because, otherwise, like whose job is it really?
Also, I think that the informal learning settings also have a huge role on this. And this was, if I remember well, also one of the comments that the informal learning settings have a role to play. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really interesting, and I agree. I think that's a key question, I guess, because so much of how we consume media and what our attitudes towards media, I think, do happen in very informal settings. So how could we utilize that better? I think it's a really important and interesting question.
Hmm. Was there anything else from the comments that you would like to highlight other than these three main points?
I think there were probably lots of things,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think those were some of the key aspects.
Okay.
Like, again, I think lots of really really interesting projects and tools. I think one tool was the sort of list of questions
Hmm.
to use for critical analysis or critical approach to information. And I think, having said that, adults are a very sort of uh, complicated target group. I think that's a good example of the fact that there are really sort of, I think, basic
Hmm.
tools and basic rules that, like, are beneficial for anyone, really.
Yeah. There was also shared a lot of resources like guides and a lot of frameworks that we should really go back and take a closer look at it. So I really invite everyone to go back to the online page, to the online discussion page, to go back and read carefully the comments. They're really insightful and really dense in terms of content as well. Very, very, very interesting. You shouldn't miss it. Heini, one last question that I have for you maybe is one question that came actually in the beginning of the discussion from Linda. She was asking, what are your predictions for the next 10 years in terms of media usage patterns? I think this is a nice way a nice way to end our online discussion. If you can see the future, if you have a prediction for the next 10 years, would you like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I have some thoughts. I don't know
Wonderful.
if these are predictions, but actually, well, one thought that is links to this question, but that is also linked to the conversation that we've been having throughout the day. I was thinking, I'm sorry, like, it just escaped my mind who shared this, but this was a tool of media literacy landscape in 2021. I think, sort of highlighting and mapping out all the different aspects of it. And one thing that I made a note of was the fact that I think it included also, how we make friends and how we fall in love in today's media landscape, or, and I think that's just a really good example of how strongly digital media and different media platforms are incorporated into so many parts of our lives, and how they, for example, change and affect the way we form relationships. And I think this is probably just going to keep continuing in the future. Uh, I don't have any clear answers to, like, how exactly, but I think it just seems clear that, uh, digital media will probably be more and more ingrained into different aspects of our lives. I think when it comes to journalism, or, traditional news media, I guess, there are probably sort of two different types of scenarios for the future. One of them is more positive and one of them is gloomier. And I think the more positive version would, maybe we could highlight the idea that news media organization will need to cater for people's individual needs better, and create more personalized content, and be more transparent with their audiences. And I think the gloomy version is that traditional news media will struggle even more, and people's sort of consumption of media and news will become even more polarized, and people will more and more sort of turn into their own little bubble and only encounter information that is in line with their views. I think probably and hopefully that the truth, is somewhere in between. But of course, like, we are also the ones creating the future. So, but I think obviously social media platforms play a huge role, and like I think their power will continue to grow. But I think now it seems like there will be more scrutiny towards social media platforms and sort of the responsibility of different platforms in sharing media. So I hope that's a sort of a trend that we will see in the next 10 years.
Wonderful. That's very interesting. Um, well, we are reaching out to the end of our online discussion, and I would like to ask you. Well, it's not a question, but maybe would you like to leave our participants with one key message or one main message in terms of our topic of today?
Yeah, well, I think again, like I think when I said earlier that there's like two versions of the predictions for the future of media, and one of them is gloomier. I think it's sort of when you're talking about, or when I've been talking about and thinking about the importance of news literacy, it's easy to maybe end up sounding quite gloomy. You know, that there are lots of threats and lots of challenges. But I think it's what I think is important to remember is that, well, again, I think like just the conversation today shows that there is so much, you know, really interesting work being done, and I think it's important not to forget that there are lots of resources and case studies and projects, and I guess it's about just sharing those and learning from each other, and you know, sharing best practices, and I think in my mind I always try to think that I think media literacy education for adults, you know, um, in the end, like I think it should be really empowering. You know, it's not about, it shouldn't just be about, you know, all the dangers and and difficulties of, you know, existing in an online world. I think it should be empowering in the end, in the sense that, you know, it's about how can we as citizens learn to be, you know, more aware and of the information and content we encounter, and how can we understand it, and how can we be an active part of the media landscapes that we live in. So maybe that.
That's very interesting, and also connects with the relationship aspect that you were mentioning just now, on the predictions for the next 10 years. And it's about the relationship with each other and the relationship with us as well, how we face it, media literacy, and how we handle that personally and with the other people as well. So it's very, very interesting, Heini. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you for staying with us throughout the day today. And as I said before, we really would like to invite you to continue the discussion on the online page. And also, we would like to invite you to read the open educational resource created by Heini and Anna also. And there's a lot of information very interesting there as well as an infographic and a quiz that you can take, and a lot of ideas that you can take. Just some of those, of course, because as we saw through the comments throughout the day, there's a lot of other things going on that we should share, that we should learn from each other, and continue building this area of work. So thank you so much, Heini, for spending the day with us. It was lovely to talk to you during the day, and I guess we will talk to you soon.
Thank you, and thank you for the really interesting conversation, everyone. I will be looking through everything more carefully after this.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone, and have a lovely afternoon.
Bye.